How's it going, everybody? This is Seer here, and today we have a blog post for you guys talking about Overpowered, the next step for it, which is going to be PvE. And this honestly isn't a video I want to do. However, I think it's important to kind of discuss Overpowered as far as how we can kind of use it to our advantage, or maybe how to navigate Overpowered so you're not feeling as trapped. So we're going to go ahead, take a look at this blog, then we're actually going to jump in game. And I'm going to kind of show you a few matches I ended up doing where Overpowered really wasn't an issue, and matches where I kind of took advantage over the Overpowered situation. So let's go ahead and start reading. So Overpowered PvE. The next step of the Overpowered rollout is underway with the introduction of Overpowered PvE content. Now, because this is PvE content, please be mindful that this means they can use it against us. It's not a one-way street. This is a two-way street to where they could use it on us, and they kind of mention or hint at that in this blog. So our goal remains clear. Make sure your character progression and upgrades pay off even more in PvE battles. Continuing to advance your character's ISOs, levels, and gear will help you experience this power for yourself, and will also help tip the scales against a nihilist. We have seen much of the feedback from the community on Overpowered PvP, and we will continue to monitor the data to see if any changes need to be made. I really don't care for this line right here because we know how impactful Overpowered is. We've been using it for a little bit now. The hate that came back from Reddit, the hate that was being demonstrated on the live Twitch Q&A kind of shows and the sentiments as far as what the community feels for this Overpowered situation, and it really does feel kind of dirty, right? I think they really need to take a step back, tone it down if they want to keep it in the game, which they're absolutely going to keep in the game. They're rolling this out to PvE content now, and they're saying they're going to continue to monitor and see what changes need to be made. Realistically, previously I was saying drop it from 25 to 35%, basically for the damage and the focus, because I didn't think they were actually going to drop it any lower than that. I think 25% is like the max. Realistically, it should be about a 15% boost, if that. You're still going to feel the advantage of the extra damage, the extra focus, because 15% isn't nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty hefty chunk. So hopefully they kind of take that feedback into account. Any feedback that you have, put it in the comments. Keep posting on Reddit. Keep kind of flooding what you guys have been doing. Just be mindful. These are people on the other side, so don't just say, oh, it's trash, this should go wherever, just be mindful, and please be very polite in a sense. That way they actually read the comments. So the system will work the same way as we outlined in our Overpowered blog. So expect the same visual appearance and impactful combat bonuses. Here's how Overpowered will arrive and make an impact in PvE modes. The first steps, showcases and Blitz. Basically the two game modes that nobody really cares about, right? Blitz, the only time I ever use this is during the quick rumble portion. Otherwise, I have not been blitzing at all. To me, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Showcases. Okay. The Thunderbolt showcases and Blitz will be the first opportunities to experience PvE Overpowered in action. Initially, only Tier 1 Overpowered bonuses will be active, with higher tiers coming later. We'll keep you updated on exactly when new tiers will unlock in our blog. So yes, like it says here, there's going to be that Tier 2, Tier 3, however many tiers they decide to go on, which we need to see what these higher tiers are going to end up doing. Is it going to be feeling as bad? Are they going to make it to where you have a health bonus, a defense bonus, you spawn with deflects, maybe you spawn with immunities? They can do a lot with this Overpowered, and I think they need to kind of be careful when they launch these higher tiers. To keep battles fair and fun, Blitz enemy Overpowered will never exceed a player's obtainable rank. So if you are at that level 90 where you only get that tier 1, that's like the max you can kind of get. If you are that level 105, the max you can get is going to be that rank 11 that we're currently at. So, but actually rank 9, you can kind of throw the ices on as well in the gear tier. So you can get up to like rank 3 with realistically for the lowest end once you unlock Overpowered. So do be mindful of that. So after the Thunderbolts showcase, all future showcases will feature the overpowered system, giving you plenty of chances to see your powered up roster shine. So looking ahead, overpowered and new PvE content. So initially I was going to say they could end up using this on Dark Dimension. Then I saw what they said down here. So it's not going to be terrible, but it's not going to feel great, right? So in the future, more new PvE content will include overpowered game modes and events that are already active, like Spotlight, Chaotic Storm Raids, Dark Dimension, and campaigns will remain unchanged. So all of these game modes that we already have for PvE content, they're not going to change it. They did not mention sagas. I don't know if that's going to be listed in the campaigns, but they did not mention sagas, meaning sagas potentially could get overpowered. I need to kind of get clarification on how sagas are clarified, because it's not Dark Dimension, it's not a campaign, it's kind of its own thing, but it could be a subsect of campaigns. So I'm going to try and get answers on that. However, new raids and game modes like Pocket Dimension will utilize overpowered. That means the Sword Tower, the Kiln Tower, those could have overpowered used against us on those later floors, making those top floors very difficult, which I'm always down for a challenge as long as it has a solvable problem, you know? So our team will continue to monitor the community's feedback and overpowers performance to ensure we're hitting our stated goal of ensuring all of your hard work is reflected in battle. Overpowered for PvE game modes will arrive on April 28th. That is going to end up being next week on Monday. Continue powering up your roster to ensure your rosters enjoys the full benefits of overpowered. Please note the information in this blog is subject to change before going live in game. Yeah. So in short, I think they really need to kind of take a step back, look at what overpowered's really doing to the community, because I know some of the Krakens enjoy it, some of them don't enjoy it. The issue being is the step up in the gear tiers. They made it where that gear tier like 0.5, so like the 18.5, 19.5 has such a huge boost that you can just throw that one piece on, and then that kind of makes it to where you're not getting the full advantage. So what do? Make it to where you go to that gear tier 20, and then you get the rest of your stats for that gear tier 20, and then you get overpowered on top of it. So that's one of the main issues that's going on with this. And I think they should just kind of reevaluate kind of that gear stuff. But let's go ahead, jump in game, and I'm going to kind of go through my roster as far as how I'm kind of approaching this. So if we kind of take a look at, this is kind of sorted by the gear tier 20. So the key to taking advantage of overpowered is look at your fast characters that hit fast and hard. So right off the bat, if we look at that, Blade and Oath, incredibly fast, hit incredibly hard. You can really take advantage with overpowered with these two, which is great because they were recommended for the Professor Xavier saga. Lady Deathstrike, fast, hits like a truck. She's a great overpowered character. Thanos Endgame, he has his passive. He's not fast. However, his passive, where it ends up doing that 400% piercing damage and drain, this is a big deal. Also, his bleeds on this, there's been countless times where my characters for Immortal XP, when I throw them into them, the Annihilators, have fallen over with about 3/4 health just due to the bleeds. So the bleeds are being affected by this as well, which is ridiculous. I had a full health Polaris just fall over. My most recent Crucible, Cable had a bunch of bleeds on him. He fell over at about 2/3 health. So bleeds are even being impacted by this. Nimrod, you can really ramp him up with the Sentinel. So the Orcus members. APOC, the reason I did him was more of a fan favorite type of character. Doing his empowered hits does feel really good as far as that goes. Now you're starting to see some of the Liberty members. They are fast, but they're not fast. It really depends on what characters you throw into them, because teams like the Superior Six can work really well into them because they're kind of on the same speed advantage. Then you can do those turn meter rewinds, get a lot of control on the Liberty team. Don't mind the Vigilante characters. They was just because they are recommended for the Xavier saga. Next up, we're going to start looking at characters like Mephisto. He's a great Dark Dimension character. He does his empowered hits. That ultimate, the massive damage he can pull out. Kahori, she does her passive shots. She takes those 2 turns right off the bat. She's going to be a great candidate. Emma Frost X-Men, I'm going to take her mainly due to the global here. I don't think she's a great candidate for the overpowered G20. However, she's not the worst character. Characters like Gladiator, honestly, the only reason you would want to take tanks is that way they don't get overpowered used against them. So there's going to be very, very limited times where you want to throw overpowered on your tanks. Now, Gladiator, he can do damage. Dorky Dad brought up how a solo Gladiator took out the Immortal X-Men team that he was punching into the Gladiator because of overpowered and the stage 2. So we also need to take room rules into account when we look at these in the future. Characters like Gore is very fast. He's a really good overpowered candidate as far as what we're looking at on here. Then there's going to be characters like Starjammers. So you kind of get the idea. Look at characters that goes fast, goes before your opponent, and then you can really either take advantage of overpowered or make it to where your opponent's overpowered doesn't really matter against you. Now, the last character I want to talk about, a character like Shadow King. He does out-of-turn damage. So Shadow King, Peggy Carter, these out-of-turn damage dealers, even Omega Sentinel, are very good candidates for overpowered as long as they have those new stats. Now, as far as how I'm dealing with overpowered, if we go into Cosmic Crucible right here, if we take a look at, say, round 1 results. So over here, you can see I had 1 overpowered character. They had 1 overpowered character, and this Daredevil was kind of sticking around a little bit. However, I didn't really use my overpowered except for Lady Deathstrike against them, which that's another case. Over here, there's no overpowered. No overpowered. This is just kind of Liberty doing its thing. Stage 4. So here, I had Blade and Oath. This really didn't change the efficiency much. So 8369. Blade and Oath, basically Night Stalker's Kestrel going into Orcus. This did not change anything. Now, if we look at stage 5, 6, so over here, I had like a gear tier 20 APOC. It doesn't do anything for me if I can't get a turn. So that's kind of key. Now, if we end up taking a look at the stage 2 or the round 2 matchup, over here, I tried using my overpowered, and this was just a bad mistake throwing Kahori in here, so don't mind that. But here you can see they had a gear tier 20 Cap Sam. I'm using rank 9 and rank 10, and I'm still able to take out. This is a 300 or a 3 million power punch up, doubling my weight class because of just using strategy as opposed to being afraid of the overpowered and kind of avoiding and trying to force things into there where it shouldn't be. For stage 2, there's no overpowered going on. Same for 3s. Right here, overpowered G20 Thanos endgame. Immortal X-Men still can work in teams like this. You do need to be mindful as far as the charges you have on Storm. Use the ultimate. Just try to get that single punch through to kill you the Thanos endgame. If he does proc off, he does about half your life when it does end up popping off, unless it's in that stage 2. For stage 5, I don't have overpowered, and stage 6. I had overpowered Odin. They had 2 overpowered, Odin and a Null, and I was able to kind of beat up my weight class by using strategy, using that Illuminati, Old Man Logan, and Odin going into this. Now, something that's really interesting is if we look at my most recent match that I've been doing, again, Superior 6 Mysterio into Liberty, that's fine. Over here, overpowered G20 Omega Sentinel, she did end up killing Loki, then she started shooting into Pav, but beyond that, it wasn't feeling as bad. For stage 3, no overpowered. Stage 4, Odin. This one here was something where Odin, for me, did carry this matchup, and the overpowered did end up helping me get through this. So that's how you can kind of use it both ways. Stage 5, I used brute strength on this one as well. Blade and Oath, punching into an Omega Force or a Phoenix Force with the X-Men characters. And I really leaned into the damage that Blade and Oath can do. So there I did take advantage of overpowered. So you can kind of see how you can use it to your advantage and make it to where your opponent can't really take advantage of the overpowered. And I want to kind of state that as dirty as overpowered can feel at times, there are ways around it by using strategy and tactics. If you kind of know what pieces to use against certain teams, you can make it to where your opponent never takes advantage of overpowered, and while you can still take advantage of it. So I think that's going to be key as far as how we need to look at overpowered in the future, at least until we see if they make any sort of change on overpowered based on the blob, because now it's going to be rolled out into PvE content and adding it into those pocket dimensions, adding it into tower modes. That's going to be very interesting, because now it's going to be harder to really come up with guides to where we say, use these characters and these teams on these floors when they're going to be used and overpowered against us. So it's really going to be an interesting time to see what ends up happening with this. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are about overpowered. Any feedback that's not just this is trash, and give me constructive criticism. That's the more likely term. Feel free to put that in there and I'll pass it over to the devs. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, have one for the rest of the day.